Karen. I don't have my reading glasses. Karen's cool. Karen is the CEO of Lunera. She's responsible for directing the growth at Lunera. And Lunera is an amazing digital startup, clean tech company, the kind of company I talked to you guys about last year where you should go to the Silicon Valley and get that job that's going to be a company that's going to change the world. That's what she's really doing. She's running a company that I think is going to be one of the major transformative companies, changing this lighting to digital lighting. And she's a driving force. As an early architect of LED lighting, Karen brings a world-class level of experience in industry networking to Lunera. The level of expertise helped the company gain additional market share in an ever-evolving industry. Her career began in LED technology at Hewlett-Packard, Optoelectronics division. You can explain that later.
I will.
She held various executive management positions in marketing and worldwide manufacturing operations prior to becoming the general manager of the division, which is like $1 billion group.
It was $500 million
Half a billion at that time.
In the late 90s.
Okay. While at HP, she worked with industry visionaries, including Roland Heights, famed Heights Law, to identify the potential for the application of LED technology into commercial and residential lighting. Mrs. Owyeung also was the architect behind the merger of HP's solid-state lighting division with Philips Lighting to form LumaLEDs, a leader in the LED industry today. Mrs. Owyeung served on the board of directors of LumaLEDs in its formative stage and was named the first CEO of the expanded joint venture. She also served on the advisory board of Bridgelux, a Silicon Valley LED technology startup company. She holds a BSEE from Vanderbilt University and has completed advanced studies at Northwestern University, Kellogg School of Management. It's my great pleasure to introduce you to an amazing woman in an amazing time in the driver's seat of the place in the world that I think the big change is going to come to balance things in the world. Karen Owyeung.
Thank you. So I have to say, I first met John about 9 or 10 months ago, working collaboratively on some projects with Lunera, and I have to say that without a question of a doubt, John is one of the most visionary, most creative, most optimistic people I've ever worked with, and he really just exudes everything that you want in a visionary thinker, and so it's really been a privilege to get to know him and to work with him collaboratively. So much of what's important in making things happen, I think, and I'm going to touch on this a couple times as we spend a few minutes together today, is a combination of vision, passion, and action. And I think those things really play together to make things happen. And I'm going to encourage you throughout my talk today to think about that as you wrap up a conference like this, because I know you've been exposed to a lot of great ideas, and your head is probably swimming at this point with lots and lots of different ideas. But you've got to turn those ideas into reality, and that comes through a combination of having the vision, having the ability to step away from the problem long enough and look at it in such a way that you get a really big picture of not all of the problems, not all of the what has to happen, but where is it we want to go? And then committing yourself to something that you feel like you can be very passionate about, and then putting the actions, those steps that are going to get you there. And at first it's hard, and not every step is going to work, but you have to step by step move in the direction. But the first step is setting the vision, and I think there's nobody better than John at doing that. In fact, sometimes I have to feel like, okay, John, let's come back down to the ground. But vision's really important. I thought I'd start just by talking a little bit about my background. John talked a lot about it. I spent 17 years at Hewlett-Packard, and when I walk into a group like this, a forum for women like this, it reminds me of the early days at HP. Let me take you one step farther back. I have to say, when I was in my electrical engineering program, there were probably 100 students, 4 of us were women. So I got kind of used to being in a very male-dominated world. And somewhere along the line when I was at HP, a small group of women decided that what we really needed was a forum for the technical women to come together. Because there were enough of us, but we were kind of spread out all over the place, to talk about issues, create networks, and figure out how we could collaborate to strengthen our ability to make a contribution. And it started as a very small group. The very first Technical Women's Conference at HP, I think, was on a weekend. We all got together on a Saturday, a very few group of people, but it was so successful. The registrations filled up quickly, and it was repeated every 2 years, and it became so big that the last time I participated in it, it was in the San Jose Convention Center, and we had the entire convention center with lots of breakout rooms, lots of excellent speakers, and the energy and the excitement was it's hard to describe. And in fact, some of the men that I knew that attended, there were a few men that attended the conference, and as I'm sure there are today here, were jealous. They said, how do you get this kind of power all in one group? So I applaud the organizers of this event, because I think there is a real energy and excitement that comes by pulling a group like this together. So as John described, I am a CEO in an exciting company in the clean tech industry. But it didn't really start that way. I've spent my entire career in one industry, the industry of LED lighting, and it wasn't always a clean tech or a green industry. It started, LEDs have been used for years, the reason HP got into it is they were used in the early scientific calculators, the little red displays on scientific calculators, for those of you who are as old as I am and remember back in those days. It was a pet project of Bill Hewlett's, one of the founders of Hewlett-Packard, getting into that scientific calculator business. And so throughout the years, we did lots of things and had an exciting business. But it was somewhere in the 90s where we realized that the developments on the efficiency and the costs, the roadmap for where the technology was going to open up this whole world of lighting. And that it was going to create a technology for lighting that would transform the lighting industry. It would bring energy efficiency, but so much more than that. And in fact, when we first started talking about it again, thinking about visions, it seemed almost too crazy. We'd have to almost pinch ourselves and say, could this really be? But as we were starting to have those thoughts at HP, so was Philips. And of course, Philips had a vested interest in the lighting industry. And together, we ended up doing a joint venture and testing out some of the concepts and believing, yes, this is really going to have a huge impact. And so for a variety of reasons, my career got sidelined for a little while, just as the joint venture between HP and Philips came to pass. It was around the year 2000, and I decided to take some time off to spend as a full-time mom. And I was afraid I might never get back into it, but I had an important job to do that kind of sidelined me. And as I was watching the industry shape, because we knew it was going to be the kind of thing that required decades-long investment, and there were lots of things that had to happen to make this vision a reality. And I got to step in a little bit. I did some work with advisory work for a company called Bridge Lux that was doing some innovative things in the industry. But at the point that I got reconnected, and this was about a year ago, I met up with some people at the Wesley Group, who are the main funders behind Lunera, the company that I'm with. And when I met up with them, I thought, what a great opportunity to have taken some time off and be able to come back into the industry just at the time when I think it's getting very interesting. And that's where we are today. Again, energy efficiency is one driving factor, but there's so much more when you move into this, into a transformative industry. And I think that's the issue with green. The whole clean tech movement, this is innovation in a way that there's just a new dimension to it. So things that were maybe not important before, things like energy efficiency, things like elimination of waste, not using toxic chemicals, are important things that have to get considered in the innovation and design cycles that maybe weren't before. And that's really the great thing that's come out of the green movement. And now I think so much of what so many of us do, in fact, maybe there will come a time where every industry is a green industry. I was talking to my sister who came to visit a couple weeks ago. She's actually in education. She started as a teacher, and now she works at a district level bringing new technology into a school district in Central Florida. And she is now piloting one of the first and largest broad-scale projects where iPads will be issued to every student in this high school. It's about 1,750 students in Central Florida will all have their own iPad. And the exciting thing about that is it eliminates a lot of other things. You know, my children have textbooks, and the school districts issue them 2 sets of textbooks, one for the school and one for the home, so they don't have to carry their giant backpacks. And every time the standards change, they're publishing new textbooks. So the cost of producing the textbooks, the materials involved in the textbooks, the problems that the kids have taking the textbooks back and forth. And besides that, textbooks aren't the only tools that these kids use today. They're used to technology, so they've also got a personal computer and a laptop computer and a smartphone, and so they're connecting to the internet, and they have their social networks, and so they learn in such a different way. And by having this one device that really replaces 5 different tools, it's bringing innovation into the classroom. And I would argue that it's bringing innovation into the classroom in a way that's green, and that's a clean tech industry. So I think we'll find over time that that almost every industry is green, and I think if this movement is successful, every industry will be green, because people will just consider that one of the important parameters when you're going with innovation, when you're trying to innovate.
Can I comment on that?
Yes.
So I think Karen is the Steve Jobs of lighting. I think the product that she's built is very similar to how disruptive and how transformative this has been. And when this came out, remember, weren't you guys just blown away? It's like, oh my God, what's next? Well, she lives in that space, that scary space of probability and possibility of what's next. And the reason I moved up 2 years ago is I told you last year at the conference that I believe that clean technology, that the aspect of digital efficiency is powerful enough when it's blown out in the way that she's built products, that we may have more than a chance to get after what most people are worried. We're never going to control what's happening in India and China and the 3 power plants a week going up and the conditions that we inherited after the first industrial revolution. And so my only point was that Karen is a really good example, and Lunera is an extremely good example of just one company of hundreds of companies that I think will bend things in that right direction. And in 1 year, her products are in one of the most premium places in the world. So if you go down to Fashion Island, to Newport Beach, you can go to the Apple store, which just completely remodeled. Karen's products light that entire store. So Apple is a client, and that's a big deal, because Apple is really on their game when it comes to design and efficiency. So Karen had to really go through a lot to get those there and everywhere else. And now you're driving price, and you're developing all kinds of new products. I don't want to, you're not going to let me talk about the recorder, are you? No? Okay. Oh, it's cool. Catch me on. No, she's invented something that's like, it's like TiVo for light. And that's, I'm going to leave it right there.
Well, I'll just say
it's just proof that just in 1 year, so many things have just happened.
I think the issue is that big transformations like this are, it's hard in the early days to even imagine all of the possibilities. If you think back to film-based photography to going to digital photography, and would you imagine that your phone would be taking pictures or video? Or, you know, I was at my daughter's into horseback riding. I was at a little show that she was doing a couple weeks ago, and one of the moms videotaped the whole thing, the whole show on her iPad. Would you think that a little tablet computer would be videotaping a show? And similarly, if you watched what happened in the music industry, going from record players to, to MP3 players, and again, your phone's got your music, your camera, everything. It's becoming an appliance. And I think lighting's going to go in that same direction, because LEDs are semiconductors. They're very controllable. They're controllables in ways we can't even imagine today. And that's, I think, some of what John's alluding to.
And when things digitize like that, so when the lighting, you can get the data, because these things will have IP addresses. You'll understand where all of the energy to light is in the world. And if you push the total button on inefficient lighting and carbon and the life-giving forces in this planet being depressed because of that carbon aspect of mining, ancient sunlight, combusting it as oil, and powering plants to run these inefficient lights. It's so important for us to own those information platforms. And about a year ago, I arrived at the fact that where we are, where we live, and the work that we're doing, one of us, someone's going to build the Facebook of energy and buildings. And Sarah and I, you've been talking about it, and we're actually going to do something about that. And we're working on those kind of things. So the implications of what's happening in the Silicon Valley is just not the technology, but it's the driving forces of companies like Lunera in their piece. And what's happened to this year, Karen's company is sharing with Enlighted, who does controls. And Karen's company sharing with Enlighted, and Enlighted sharing their information with Solidyne. And Solidyne makes dynamic glass, which can go from clear to black as the sun changes across the building, further reducing the carbon impacts of the built world. And with these guys working together, it's just incredible, the reality, the return on investment. And so when all these digital building technologies have come together, it's done the thing that nobody's ever been able to do in green building. It's accelerated the return on investment, and we now can do the right thing for less money and first cost than ever before. And lighting's been big. I mean, lighting's about 25 or almost 30% of building energy, right?
Absolutely.
So
you hear estimates anywhere from 25 to 40%. And again, I think a lot of times the initial return on investment is calculated based on just the energy savings or the energy and the maintenance savings. But what we find with these progressive customers that are trying out new technologies, they start with, just calculating the things that are very straightforward. But once they get past that, they find all of these additional benefits that they didn't expect. For example, in the retail space, the fact that the lighting has better color rendering, which means things look better under that light. There's a return on investment that's hard to calculate because their products look better, their products sell better. In a retail environment, the retail owners want people to feel comfortable in that space, so they become these softer reasons that, yes, there are dollars and cents associated with it, but it's harder to calculate. Similarly, in the education area, we've done a lot of work with Harvard University and some other community colleges, schools around the country, providing an environment that is better for people to work in. And over time, we think there are some things that in LED technology that can enhance productivity. So again, it's hard to put dollars and cents on some of those softer things, but there's real economic value there.
We're working on a project together with Walgreens. Walgreens just gave us 4 stores to build. One of them, they want us to fail. They want us to try things that are so out of the box that it's not going to have a return on investment. In fact, they said, if you bring us something that has a 5-year or less payback on it, we think you failed. We really want to move the mark. I said, you're kidding. I can't even do that. But you know how we got the job? I had to watch women shopping in the store for 3 days. And I watched women go to the cosmetic aisle, which was that wall. The stores are a little bit, about twice the size of this room. That whole wall was cosmetics. And they would take lipstick and face makeup, and they'd have to go outside to see the real color. And then they go back and look at all these women and go, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Well, the president of Walgreens, who runs it runs 7,000 stores, didn't really realize it. And I talked to a woman, a saleswoman there. She worked there 18 years. And I said, how long has this been going on? She said, the whole time I've been here. And so the perspective and our observation wasn't about us trying to make the store more efficient. All of a sudden we realized this is about the customer and the guest experience. And to your point, the light on the products that they spend millions for Halle Berry on the ad campaign and Beyonce, the packaging is trapped. So when next time you go into Walgreens or CVS, you guys know what I'm talking about. It's horrendous. When her lights hit this store, coupled with tracking skylights and that dynamic live glass, the store is just going to jump. And it's going to drive sales. It's going to make things happen faster at half the cost. And that's what comes out of this. Just like Ann Han and I worked together on a gas station, that sales were doubled. And the retention of employees went up 7x. And these are the things that they're hitting the balance sheet. They're going into the boardroom. Walgreens board was asking at the same time, what are we doing about sustainability? And here's the other thing that happened with Walgreens. we realized by taking the stores off the grid with solar power, because they have a huge roof, to run her lights directly, by the way, solar from the roof directly to her low voltage digital photon guns. I mean, light guns. They're LEDs, but they're amazing. We just built a store that's off the grid in communities that someday may suffer a catastrophic event, like a flood or an earthquake on the East Coast. And the stores that they're picking are going to become places for the community to go to at that time. And what's in a Walgreens? Medicine, water, food. And so when we approached the cities to get approvals for this, the red carpet rolled out. Amazing, huh? When you just go after trying to do the right thing. And with these kind of tools, with companies like Karen's, we can do these things. And it's just amazing how everybody got on board to make that happen. So look for 1,000 Walgreens stores in the next 5 years that are not just high-tech and clean tech and green, but are relevant. Relevant in a time when we need help. And they're just stores now, but they're going to be a place that you'll recognize as the place to go when things are tough, when there is no power and there is no water. Isn't that amazing? Just right under our nose. Onward.
Onward. Yeah, so I was thinking a little bit as you were talking about innovation. I have a 19-year-old daughter who's a sophomore in college, and she goes to a school on the East Coast, a small college, Babson College, which is known for entrepreneurialism. And it's a really exciting way for kids to learn. I wish I had had this opportunity back in those days. Their freshman year, every student is required to take a class in entrepreneurialism. And they start in class sizes of 60, and they pair the students up in groups of 3. And each 3-student team pitches an idea. They pitch it to their fellow students, and they decide which ones they're going to go with, and they whittle the ideas down from 20 ideas to 3. And those 3 ideas become companies, and the companies get a $3,000 loan from the school. They create a business plan, they find a way to develop a supply chain, get their product, they make a web page, they sell their product, and they have to run this company by the end of their freshman year. They liquidate the company, and whatever assets go on to a charity. So they're working for a charity. I heard a comment earlier just before we were talking about how these kids sort of expect sustainability to be part of their lives. They expect doing good things for the community they live in. It's just they've been raised to do that from the beginning. And here's an educational experience that's focused on entrepreneurial thinking, whether these students end up in an entrepreneurial business or a large company or education or nonprofit. They're going to be thinking about ways to innovate. They're going to be thinking about ways to reduce costs, to make things better for the planet, and to give back to their community. And so it's an exciting time and place in the world, I think.
So what were you doing? Why were you late today getting here?
So when John first invited me to do this talk, I had mentioned it to our VP of Business Development. I was going to be in Southern California. I live up in the Bay Area, and I told him I was going to be down here for the day. And he said, "Oh, good. Can I squeeze in a few meetings in the morning?" So anyway, I was in meetings up until the end, but it was an exciting day. I was telling John before I came in here, I got to meet with a large developer who's got great contacts in some of the major architects in the country that are doing some very exciting things in this area and are very excited about lighting technologies. And then more recently, I was meeting with a company that's hopefully a future investor for the company, because as we all know, in order to make these ideas work, we have to have investment dollars to put to work. And
So you're always out raising money,
I'm always out raising money. That's part of my life.
And you're always trying to develop and design new product.
Right. Always trying to develop, and always trying to develop new relationships. That's the meeting with the contractor and the architects. It's really an ecosystem. You were talking about a little bit when you're talking about the collaboration of these companies. None of us lives on an island as individuals within a company, but as companies within an ecosystem. So we're all really dependent on each other, and the sharing of the vision and how do we make things happen together is really how I spend my whole day.
And Greenbuild's going to be in San Francisco next year. As you know, it's going to be in Toronto in October. But Greenbuild's and the USGBC are really excited about San Francisco for all the exciting things that we're talking to you about today. But Let's talk a little bit more about Lunera. Like, what do you see, what's the future? And let's run some numbers. Conventional lighting to digital lighting, 500,000 square foot office building. Lots of things happen when they shift over, right? And you talked about the building efficiencies and light quality. And I've heard you say the future of light is the quality of light. Am I right? Not just
Well, I
all
think
this.
the important part of that is that people don't just want energy efficiency. You know, if they want, most humans are very drawn to light. You know, we need light to perform. We need it not just to see, but it just is it's a very stimulating part of our lives. And the more natural the light, you know I grew up in Florida and live in California now, and I can't imagine a day without sunshine. It's just a big part of who I am. I'm also one of these people that gets impacted by bright lights. I get ocular migraines. So there are a lot of things. I need good light, and I think a lot of other people do too. One of the things that's happened as we've moved from incandescent lighting technology to fluorescent technology is there's been some compromises in light quality. And so what we're working on is transforming the industry to get both, get energy efficiency and the kind of quality of light that gives you a good experience.
Does LED have the potential to make us feel like we're outside?
Yes.
And up in the valley right now, if you work at Facebook and you're an engineer, there's two things going on. You're overpaid. You're working all the time. This is this cool trend we see with these companies like Facebook that are just on fire. And you got to ask yourself, you know, how do they retain this talent? You know, where will they go? And they can't pay people anymore. It's not about opening your wallet. It's about creating a space. And the workplace has changed too. If you go over to Gensler or HOK or SOM, they'll tell you the workplace index is completely changing. It's happening here, and people are only at their desk about half the time, and I think that's going to be even less. So more people are going to work in that same space. And that will drive the value of a building up because it's more productive building. But to make that place human again, we need products like Lunera that focus on the quality of light. We need fresh air. We need an environment within the space to move all those things along. And that's emerging right now. And I see a resurgence in real estate, which has driven the economy here forever. And not just residentially, but commercially. I think it's going to happen commercially first. And your firm, Alan, and others, the big venture groups, they're investing on the fact that real estate's going to be valued based on its operational efficiencies. And as soon as that happens, and when it happens here, that's a whole new economy. And I believe Karen is driving a third of that with this little company called Lunera, which won't be a little company when that starts to pull. So she's trying to push her products right now, but it could be pulled. And it's important for any of you in the audience today that are connected to developers like the ones you met to let them know how important it is to adopt these companies. And Jamie, you need to have the next Women in Green conference in San Francisco so we can take everyone to show them all of this sort of wonder of this whole next generation of just efficiencies in the workplace. And because collaborative working is coming. Kids want to work for companies that leave something behind and make a difference, not just make something. And every Salesforce.com, Zynga, Yahoo, Intel, all these new breakthrough collaborative campuses in the million, Adobe, all these new big places for people to work and live, they're embodying all these technologies. So you'll see it run across the rest of the market.
Yeah, I think a good example, we did a major installation at SAP, the software company. And they started, as I said earlier, with the numbers. You know, does this make sense? Am I going to get a payback? But very quickly, once they realized, yes, this was a reasonable payback based on the energy efficiency for us to pull out our fluorescent lights, put in LED lighting, and a control system that allowed them to turn the lights on and off. They have a function called Follow Me, so as you're walking through the room, if you're the only person in the room, the lights will light up and then turn off, you know, and all the occupancy sensing and daylight harvesting so that when no one is using the rooms, they're dimmed, not necessarily turned off because you want some amount of ambient light, but they've got this very sophisticated lighting system that they've put in. But they started with the economics, but then the next thing they did is, how do our people feel in this environment? because they're concerned too about retention of employees, about productivity of the employees. How do people feel when you're in your space? Are they going to be
Safety, too.
productive?
Safety and
all of those
our
issues.
health, our eyes. You know, Solodine glass is better for us. Your lights are, it almost mimics the sun. That's better for us.
Right.
I've been watching all these specials on 9/11 right now on National Geographic. They've been running this week-long thing, and I'm like, oh my God, it's around the corner. It seems like it was yesterday. And we're always looking for benefits to products. And Lisa and I work with Interface quite closely, and Interface is working on very big digital platforms too. They've put an RFID tag, I don't know if you guys know what that is, but it's a little digital tag that just identifies things. It just sends a signal. They put it on every one of their carpet tiles. We're like, that's cool. What's it going to do? Is it going to tell the Rombo vacuum cleaner how to do the space? No. Will I come into the building and step on the Interface digital carpet tile at the lobby level in the building, and will it tell the building I'm there and start turning on my workstation? Maybe. That's cool. Will it preset the lights to the spectral lighting shape of my vacation in Hawaii with Karen's lights? Maybe. And it's my space, but what it could really do is, in a state of emergency, it could empty out a 1 million square foot building by understanding where everybody is in a flow of, so that carpet knows real time where the population of the building is, and it could talk to Karen's lights and start moving those lights in a pattern that would get you out. Imagine the possibility of a building that's got that kind of intelligence at that critical time. And then there are companies like the company Tanya works for. Where's Tanya? You heard Tanya. So Tanya works for SCI. And SCI has a product called Skywatch. And Skywatch is just this brilliant software kernel that goes in and tells you what's going to happen later. And right now in the world, we only know what happened just now. But when products like that can tell you what might happen in a month or two from now, you're talking about looking at the future of the load shape of what's causing all the problems in the world. And we can move smarter to that. And when you get all these things working together, we're safer, we're more productive. We have done so much more on green building and sustainability than anybody realized. And this is the point I just keep making. And I'm 54, and I help get a lot of these things going because I met people like Ray, and I didn't do it, but I helped lead Ray to it, and I helped the USGBC, and I helped the greening of the White House, and it's just, I could just sense that. And I'm just telling you as an audience that we're there now again, and we're gonna make it happen, and we have 1 minute to wrap. And then importantly, we get to share this gift. And Lisa, I'd like you to come up and join us because you're so important to the whole situation at Interface. So Karen, a minute on
Well, I guess
you changing the world.
to wrap up, I'll say what I said at the beginning, both for me and hopefully you'll find some value in this too. I heard a woman who was an Olympic athlete speak, I don't know, about 20 years ago, and I still remember her talk because she really talked about this combination of the three things: the head, the heart, and the hands, meaning the vision, the passion, and the action that it requires to make big things happen. And you can't do it with any one of those things missing. There's a great Henry Ford quote, too, that says, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Meaning, if you think you can't do something, you won't be able to. If you think you can, and you put the right passion in place, and you start to take action to make that happen, then really the sky's the limit and you can do whatever. So we have big dreams, and that's my job every day, to keep the dreams big, the vision big, the passion behind that high, the energy, the excitement, starting at my level, but throughout our organization and with our customers and our partners, and then just taking those steps one thing at a time. You know, you're not going to get it all done in a day, but you know, every step is taking you in the direction of that vision. So as you're wrapping up your 2 days here, and I encourage you to think about how you can maybe make your vision bigger, re-energize your passion, and take a few steps to get you in the direction of wherever your journey is taking you.
So I just want to thank Karen. Thank you, Karen. And we need more people like Karen in the Valley. We need powerful women who recognize so much needs to happen going forward. And, you know, Alan and the few men out there, why are we all so gray-haired? And we've been focused in the last Industrial Revolution on things that just had so much terminal value. And the women that I meet in the Silicon Valley, they're not running their companies with terminal design and a terminal sense of value, and it's for sale, and we got to get it done. And they're moving things from here. Their psychology is what's in their heart, what's in their head are lined up. And that's why this group, Women in Green, is so important. You are the best driving force, the best DNA for the next Industrial Revolution. And it's yours. It's here. I've been here. I'm a starter. I'm a catalytic, passionate person to help people become their best. You as a group are going to go there. I know it. So thanks, Karen, for sharing.
Thank you.